Growing up as Victoria Hamilton's daughter wasn't easy. Every breath I took, every step I made, was carefully monitored and judged. My father, the CEO of Hamilton Industries, had my entire life planned out before I could even walk. "Charlotte, darling," he'd say, adjusting his perfectly pressed Armani suit, "a Hamilton never settles for second best." Our mansion in Beverly Hills stood as a testament to that philosophy. 28 rooms of carefully curated luxury, each one screaming wealth and power. But to me, it felt more like a golden cage than a home. By the time I turned 25, I had followed my father's blueprint perfectly. Harvard Business School graduate, junior executive at Hamilton Industries, and engaged to Bradley Winchester ILI. Heir to Winchester Technologies and my father's handpicked choice for my husband. There was just one small problem. I was desperately, hopelessly in love with someone else. I met James Mitchell on a rainy Tuesday morning when my Ferrari broke down on the way to work. He was the mechanic who came to my rescue, arriving in a beaten-up tow truck with a smile that made my heart skip a beat. "Looks like your timing belt's shot," he said, wiping his hands on his worn jeans. "I can fix it, but it'll take a few hours." Something about his honest brown eyes and the way he explained everything without talking down to me made me agree to wait at his small garage instead of calling an Uber. That decision changed my life forever. Over cups of terrible vending machine coffee, I discovered James wasn't just any mechanic. He'd worked his way through engineering school, graduating top of his class. He could have taken a cushy corporate job, but he loved working with his hands, solving problems, making things better. "Life's too short to spend it doing something just because it looks good on paper," he told me, his eyes twinkling. Those words hit me like a thunderbolt. For the first time, someone had put into words exactly what I'd been feeling all my life. One coffee led to another, then dinner, then stolen moments whenever I could escape my suffocating world. James never asked about my family's wealth, never tried to impress me with fancy restaurants or expensive gifts. Instead, he showed me the joy of simple things: midnight drives along the coast, picnics in hidden parks, and laughter. So much laughter. For 6 months, I lived a double life. Society princess by day, myself by night. But I knew it couldn't last forever. The breaking point came during a charity gala at our mansion. Bradley was droning on about merger strategies to anyone who would listen, while my mother paraded me around like a prized thoroughbred. "Charlotte will be taking over the East Coast operations after the wedding," she'd announced to yet another group of socialites. The Winchesters and Hamiltons. Imagine the possibilities. I felt like I was suffocating. Excusing myself, I fled to the garden, my trembling fingers already dialing James's number. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered into the phone, tears streaming down my face. "I can't marry Bradley. I can't be who they want me to be." James was silent for a moment before speaking. "Then don't be. Be who you are, Charlotte. That's the person I fell in love with." That night changed everything. The next morning, I walked into my father's study, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. "Daddy, I need to tell you something." My voice shook slightly. "I can't marry Bradley. I'm in love with someone else." The explosion that followed was nuclear. My father's face turned purple as I explained about James, about wanting a different life than the one he planned. "A mechanic?" he roared, his fist slamming onto his mahogany desk. "My daughter, a Hamilton, in love with a grease monkey. He's an engineer, Daddy, and he's brilliant. If you just meet him." "Absolutely not." My father's voice could have shattered glass. "You will marry Bradley as planned, or you can forget about your trust fund, your position at the company, everything. Is that clear?" I stood up straighter, channeling strength I didn't know I had. "Crystal clear, Daddy. Goodbye." Walking out of that study was the hardest thing I'd ever done. My mother's hysterical tears, my father's threats, the whispers of the household staff. It all followed me as I packed a small bag and left the only home I'd ever known. James was waiting for me outside his modest apartment, worry etched on his face. When I told him what happened, he tried to talk me out of it. "Charlotte, that's your whole life you're giving up. Your family, your inheritance. I can't let you do that for me." I silenced him with a kiss. "I'm not giving up my life, James. I'm finally starting it." The next few months were a crash course in reality. I moved into James' one-bedroom apartment, got a job as an entry-level business consultant at a small firm, and learned how to live on a budget. It wasn't easy, but for the first time in my life, I felt free. My parents' attempts to bring me to my senses ranged from emotional manipulation to outright threats. They froze my accounts, canceled my credit cards, and even tried to get me fired from my new job. But with each obstacle, James and I grew stronger together. When we decided to get married, we planned a simple ceremony in a local park. No designer dress, no society photographers, just us and a few close friends. The morning of the wedding, I received a text from my mother. Your father and I will be attending. One last chance to fix this mistake. My heart raced as I showed James the message. He squeezed my hand. It's your call, love. Whatever you want. I wanted them there. Despite everything, they were still my parents. So when I walked down the makeshift aisle in my simple white dress from a department store, my eyes instantly found them standing at the back. My father looked like he'd swallowed something sour, while my mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Neither moved to join the ceremony. During the reception, a casual barbecue in the park, they made their final play. Charlotte, darling, my mother's voice dripped with desperation. It's not too late. Bradley would still take you back. Think about what you're throwing away. My father cut straight to the point. This is your last chance, young lady. Stay with this person, and you'll never see a penny of your inheritance. Is that what you want? To live in poverty. I looked at James, who was chatting and laughing with our friends, completely at ease in his rented suit. Then I looked at my parents, trapped in their world of wealth and expectations. What I want, I said clearly, is to be happy. James makes me happy. If you can't understand that, then maybe we don't need your money, or you, in our lives. My father's face turned that dangerous shade of purple again. You're a dumb daughter of mine, he spat, turning on his heel. My mother hesitated for a moment, then hurried after him. As they stormed away, James appeared at my side, wrapping an arm around my waist. You okay? I leaned into him, watching my past walk away. Never better. That was 6 months ago. We settled into our life together, working hard, loving harder. James continued at his garage while taking night classes for his master's degree. I threw myself into my consulting work, building my own client base. We were happy, truly happy, even if we had to watch our spending and clip coupons. But there was something James hadn't told me, something that was about to turn my world upside down again. Everything changed on a seemingly ordinary Friday evening. I came home from work early, excited to surprise James with takeout from our favorite Thai place. But our apartment was empty, with a hastily scribbled note on the counter. Working late at the garage. Love you. It wasn't unusual for James to work late, but something felt different. Lately he'd been distracted, taking mysterious phone calls and working odd hours. A knot formed in my stomach as my mind wandered to dark places. Was history repeating itself? Was I about to lose everything again? Unable to sit still, I decided to bring dinner to him at the garage. But when I pulled up, the place was dark. James's beaten-up truck wasn't in its usual spot. My hands trembled as I called his number. Straight to voicemail. Just as panic started to set in, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Mitchell, please come to 1875 Highland Avenue immediately. It's about your husband. My heart stopped. Highland Avenue was in the industrial district, miles from James's garage. With shaking fingers, I typed the address into my GPS and drove through the darkening city, imagining worst-case scenarios. The GPS led me to a massive, modern building with sleek glass walls. Security gates opened automatically as I approached, and a uniformed guard directed me to an underground parking garage. Mrs. Mitchell, he nodded respectfully. Take the executive elevator to the top floor. Executive elevator? Top floor? What was going on? The elevator opened into a stunning office suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And there, standing at a glass desk with his back to me, was James, but not the James I knew. Gone were the worn jeans and oil-stained t-shirt. Instead, he wore an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than our monthly rent. When he turned around, his familiar warm smile was tinged with nervousness. Charlie, he said softly, using his special nickname for me, I think it's time I told you everything. Before he could continue, the office door burst open. And there, like a scene from my worst nightmare, stood my father, mother, and Bradley Winchester Ally. What is the meaning of this? My father thundered, his face already turning that familiar shade of purple. Security said Charlotte was headed up here. What are you doing in the CEO's office, you mechanic? James straightened his tie and walked around the desk. Actually, Mr. Hamilton, I am the CEO. James Mitchell, founder and chief executive officer of Mitchell Innovations. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother grabbed a chair for support. Bradley's mouth hung open unattractively, and my father, for the first time in my life, was speechless. But my mother stammered, "You're a mechanic." James smiled, taking my hand. I own a chain of auto repair shops, yes. It was my first business, started with a loan from my college professor. But Mitchell Innovations is my main focus. We're a tech company specializing in revolutionary electric vehicle batteries. That's what those late nights at the garage were about. We were finalizing our new prototype. My head was spinning. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to know, James said softly, turning to face me. When we met, I just made the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Every woman I dated was only interested in my money, my status. But you fell in love with me when I was just a mechanic. You gave up everything for me. I had to be sure. Mitchell Innovations, my father muttered, his business mind finally catching up. The company that just revolutionized electric vehicle battery technology. The one every major car manufacturer is fighting to partner with. That's you. James nodded. Our market valuation hit $12 billion last week. Not quite Hamilton Industries territory, but we're getting there. I couldn't help but laugh at my father's expression. All those months of looking down on my poor husband, and James had been building an empire right under their noses. And now, James continued, his voice taking on a sharper edge, I'd like to discuss how you treated your daughter. The woman who, by the way, just became one of the largest shareholders in Mitchell Innovations when she married me. My father's face paled. Hamilton Industries had been trying to break into the electric vehicle market for years. Having a connection to Mitchell Innovations would have been a game changer. Now see here, my father blustered, trying to regain control. We were just looking out for Charlotte's best interests. By disarming her? James's voice was steel wrapped in silk. By trying to get her fired? By making her cry herself to sleep for weeks. Daddy, I finally found my voice. You always taught me that Hamiltons never settle for second best. Well, I didn't. I married the most brilliant, kind, and successful man I've ever known. And I did it without knowing about any of this. Charlotte, sweetheart, my mother stepped forward, arms outstretched. We were wrong. We see that now. Please come home. I looked around the magnificent office, then at James, my wonderful husband who had let me find my own way, support myself, grow stronger. I am home, Mom, but if you want to be part of our lives, you'll have to accept us on our terms. No more manipulation. No more control. My father looked like he was choking on something particularly unpleasant. And what about Hamilton Industries? James smiled. Well, sir, we've actually had several offers from your competitors for exclusive partnerships. But I thought, given the family connection, we might consider a different arrangement, if you're interested in discussing it, as equals. The next hour was surreal. My father and James talked business while my mother fussed over my terrible apartment and insisted we move into a proper home. Bradley had slunk away somewhere, probably to lick his wounds. Later that night, back in our small apartment, I finally asked James the question that had been burning in my mind. Why keep working at the garage? Why live like this when you have billions? James pulled me close. The garage keeps me grounded, reminds me where I started. And this apartment, these months with you, they've been the happiest of my life. We made it ours together, without any silver spoons or trust funds. Tears welled in my eyes. I love you, you sneaky billionaire. He laughed. I love you too, you runaway Harris. Life changed after that night, but not in the ways people might expect. We did move, but into a modest house we chose together. I joined Mitchell Innovations as head of their charitable foundation, using our resources to help other young entrepreneurs. James still spends time at his original garage, teaching mechanical skills to underprivileged youth. My parents, well, they're trying. Mom still makes not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren needing trust funds, but Dad has developed a genuine respect for James. Their weekly business meetings often turned into lengthy discussions about everything from classic cars to philosophy. As for me, I finally understood what James meant about life being too short to live it on paper. Sometimes the best things come disguised as broken down Ferraris and coffee from vending machines. But the best part? Every now and then, when we drive past our old apartment or grab Thai food from our favorite takeout place, James still looks at me the same way he did when he was just a mechanic and I was just a rebel Harris. Because in the end, love doesn't care about bank accounts or business empires. It cares about who you are when everything else is stripped away. And we're simply Charlotte and James, a mechanic and a runaway Harris who found something better than billions. We found each other. Sarah Martinez smoothed down her simple blue dress as she walked into the Grand Plaza Hotel, her heart beating with anticipation. Today was her daughter Emma's wedding day, and despite everything, she couldn't help but smile. The lobby gleamed with marble and crystal, exactly the kind of venue her future son-in-law's family would choose. Mom. Emma's voice rang out across the lobby. Sarah turned to see her daughter, still in her regular clothes, hurrying toward her. You made it. But there was something tight about Emma's smile, a tension in her shoulders that Sarah recognized all too well. Of course I made it, sweetheart. I wouldn't miss your big day. Sarah reached out to hug her daughter, but Emma took a small step back, her eyes darting around the lobby. Mom, I need to tell you something, Emma began, wringing her hands. James's family, they've made some changes to the seating arrangements. Sarah's stomach tightened. She'd been expecting something like this ever since James's mother, Patricia Thompson, had taken over the wedding planning. What kind of changes? They've moved you to the back table, Emma said quickly, the words tumbling out. Near the kitchen entrance. Patricia says it's because of the photographer's setup. But she trailed off, unable to meet her mother's eyes. Before Sarah could respond, a sharp voice cut through their conversation. Emma, what are you doing down here? We need you in the bridal suite immediately. Patricia Thompson strode across the lobby, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. Her eyes swept over Sarah with barely concealed disdain. Oh, you're here. Sarah straightened her spine. Hello, Patricia. The hotel looks lovely. Patricia's lips curved into a cold smile. Yes, well, we wanted everything to be perfect for James and Emma. Speaking of which, she turned to Emma. Darling, your hair appointment was scheduled for 10 minutes ago. You don't want to keep everyone waiting. Emma hesitated, looking between her mother and future mother-in-law. Mom, I'm sorry about. Go on, Sarah said gently. It's your day. Don't worry about me. As Emma hurried away, Patricia's facade dropped. Listen, she said, her voice low and cutting. I know Emma insisted on having you here, but let's be clear, you don't fit in with our crowd. The Thompsons have a certain reputation to maintain. Sarah kept her voice steady. I'm here for my daughter. Yes, and you can support her from the back of the room. We don't need your modest circumstances ruining the wedding photos. I'm sure you understand. Patricia's smile was sharp as glass. Oh, and we've arranged for the staff meals to be served at your table. It seemed appropriate. With that, Patricia turned and walked away, leaving Sarah standing alone in the vast lobby. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of the humiliation. She thought about the extra shifts she picked up at the hospital, working as a nurse to help pay for Emma's education. About the nights she'd spent helping Emma study for her medical school entrance exams, proud beyond words when she'd been accepted. Now her daughter was marrying into the Thompson family, owners of the largest hospital network in the state, and suddenly Sarah's decades of hard work meant nothing. She found her way to the ballroom, where the wedding would take place in a few hours. The space was stunning. Crystal chandeliers caught the light, fresh flowers adorned every table, and a string quartet was setting up in the corner. But as she walked toward the back of the room, she saw it, her table, partially hidden behind a large pillar right next to the swinging kitchen doors. Mrs. Martinez? A young woman in hotel staff uniform approached her. I'm Jenny from Event Services. We were told you'd be seated here. Sarah nodded, noticing the sympathy in Jenny's eyes. That's right. The thing is, Jenny lowered her voice, glancing around. I wanted to let you know, while the staff here, we all know who you are. My sister was at County General last year when you worked that terrible 30-hour shift during the crisis. You saved her life. Sarah blinked in surprise. She remembered that night. A massive pileup on the highway had overwhelmed the hospital. She'd stayed long past her shift, working until she could barely stand. Jenny continued, we think it's wrong how they're treating you, and we wanted you to know, if you need anything, just ask. The whole staff is on your side. For a moment, Sarah stood there, processing Jenny's words. Then she remembered something that could change everything. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Actually, she said, a small smile playing at her lips, there is something you could help me with, but first, I need to make a call. As she dialed a familiar number, Sarah watched the Thompson family sweeping through the ballroom, directing staff and making demands. Patricia was at the center of it all, gesturing dramatically about some perceived flaw in the table settings. Hello, Marcus. It's Sarah Martinez. Remember that favor you owe me? I think it's time to cash it in. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of activity. Sarah watched from her corner as the ballroom filled with guests, all dressed in designer clothes and dripping with jewelry. She couldn't help but notice how the Thompson family greeted each arrival with elaborate embraces and air kisses, at least until they spotted her. Is that her? She overheard one woman whisper to Patricia, the mother who works as a nurse. Patricia's response was just loud enough to carry. Yes, unfortunately. But don't worry, we've managed to keep her out of sight. Can't have anything spoiling James's big day. Sarah checked her watch. Any minute now. The first sign that something was wrong came when Jenny and 3 other servers suddenly removed their uniforms, revealing street clothes underneath. They walked straight through the middle of the ballroom and toward the exit. Where are you going? Patricia called out, her voice sharp. We haven't even served the appetizers. Jenny turned, her head held high. We quit. Before Patricia could respond, more staff members began following suit. The bartenders packed up their tools. The valet parking attendants walked off their posts. Even the wedding coordinator closed her laptop and headed for the door. What is the meaning of this? Patricia's face had turned an interesting shade of red. You can't just leave. We have a contract. Actually, a deep voice said from the doorway, they can. Marcus Chen, CEO of the hotel chain, walked into the ballroom. His presence commanded immediate attention, and Sarah had to suppress a smile as she watched Patricia's expression shift from anger to confusion to desperate charm. Mr. Chen. Patricia hurried forward. There must be some mistake. We booked this venue months ago, and now your staff is following my direct orders. Marcus finished for her. He turned to address the crowded room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize, but the Grand Plaza will not be able to host this event today. All staff have been instructed to cease operations immediately. The ballroom erupted in chaos. Guests began murmuring. James's father was shouting about lawyers, and Emma, poor Emma, looked like she might faint. Mom, Emma made her way through the crowd to Sarah's side. What's happening? Before Sarah could answer, Marcus spotted her and smiled warmly. Sarah, there you are. Patricia's head whipped around so fast Sarah worried she might hurt herself. You know each other. Know each other? Marcus laughed. Sarah Martinez saved my daughter's life last year. Spotted a rare condition that every other doctor had missed. Stayed with her through the night, monitoring her personally. He turned to Sarah. I told you then. Anything you need, anytime. I meant it. The pieces were starting to fall into place for the guests. Sarah could see the dawning horror on Patricia's face as she realized her mistake. But more than that, Marcus continued, his voice carrying across the now silent room. Sarah Martinez sits on the board of directors for our hospital group's charitable foundation. She's been instrumental in directing millions in funding to underprivileged communities. When she called to tell me how she was being treated at her own daughter's wedding, he shook his head. Well, let's just say the Grand Plaza doesn't associate with that kind of behavior. Emma stared at her mother, tears in her eyes. Mom, I had no idea. Why didn't you ever say anything? Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand. Because I wanted you to make your own way, sweetheart. I never wanted my connections to influence your choices. She paused, looking around the room. But I also won't let anyone treat us like we're beneath them. This is ridiculous. Patricia's voice was shrill. You can't just shut down our wedding. Do you know how much we spent? Oh, I'm not shutting it down, Sarah said calmly. She nodded to Marcus, who gestured to the staff waiting by the doors. They began wheeling in new serving carts, and fresh teams of waiters entered the ballroom. "I'm taking over." Patricia's mouth opened and closed soundlessly as Sarah continued. "The wedding will proceed, if Emma and James still want it to, but under new management and new seating arrangements." James, who had been watching everything unfold in stunned silence, finally stepped forward. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm so sorry. I had no idea my parents were treating you this way." He turned to Emma. "And I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you and your mom sooner." Emma looked between her fiancé and her mother, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I'm sorry too. I should have said something." "No more apologies," Sarah said firmly. "This is still your day. Let's make it a good one." She turned to the gathered guests. "Everyone who'd like to stay and celebrate Emma and James's wedding is welcome, as long as they understand that in this room, everyone is equal. Everyone is family." The transformation that followed was remarkable. The Thompson family, thoroughly humbled, retreated to quiet corners. The other guests, free from the atmosphere of judgment and pretense, began to relax. And Emma was glowing with pride as she looked at her mother. As the ceremony began, slightly delayed but more genuine than it would have been, Sarah took her seat in the front row. Jenny, who had changed back into her uniform along with the other staff, caught her eye and winked. Sarah smiled, thinking about how different this day had turned out from what she'd expected. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't about getting even. It was about standing up and showing your true worth. But there was still one more surprise in store for everyone. As the reception began, Sarah watched the transformed atmosphere with quiet satisfaction. The string quartet played softly in the background while guests mingled freely, the former social hierarchies forgotten in the wake of the afternoon's revelations. Patricia Thompson sat at a table near the kitchen doors, the very one she'd assigned to Sarah, looking thoroughly deflated. Her husband Richard kept checking his phone, no doubt trying to assess the social damage of the day's events. Sarah almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "Mrs. Martinez?" James approached her table, looking nervous but determined. "Could we talk privately for a moment?" Sarah nodded, following her new son-in-law to a quiet corner of the ballroom. James took a deep breath before speaking. "I want you to know," he began, "that I've made some decisions. I'm stepping away from my family's hospital administration position." Sarah's eyebrows rose in surprise. "James, that's not necessary." "It is," he insisted. "I've been thinking about this for a while, actually. I went into healthcare administration because it was expected, but," he straightened his shoulders, "I want to go to medical school, like Emma. I want to help people directly, the way you do." A warm smile spread across Sarah's face. "Emma never told me that." "I never told her," James admitted. "I was afraid of disappointing my parents, but after seeing you today, how you handled everything with such grace and strength, I realized I've been living my life trying to please the wrong people." Before Sarah could respond, Marcus Chen appeared at her elbow. "Sarah, there's someone here who'd like to speak with you." He gestured toward the ballroom entrance, where an elegant older woman stood waiting. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she recognized Dr. Catherine Reynolds, the current health commissioner for the state. "Sarah Martinez," Dr. Reynolds said warmly, approaching their group. "I'm so glad I could make it, even if I am fashionably late." Patricia and Richard Thompson, who had been watching from their table, practically tripped over themselves rushing over. "Commissioner Reynolds," Patricia gushed. "What an unexpected honor." "Save it, Patricia," the commissioner cut her off coolly. "I'm here to speak with Sarah." She turned back to Sarah with a smile. "The board meeting is next week, and I wanted to discuss this in person. We've reviewed your proposal for the new community health initiative, and we're not just approving it, we're doubling the funding." The Thompsons' jaws dropped in perfect synchronization. "But more than that," Dr. Reynolds continued, "I'm retiring next year, and the governor has been asking for recommendations for my replacement." She gave Sarah a meaningful look. "I'd like to put your name forward, if you're interested." The ballroom had gone quiet again, everyone straining to hear the conversation. Sarah felt Emma's hand slip into hers. She hadn't even noticed her daughter approaching. "Mom," Emma whispered, "you never told me about any of this." Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand. "I've always believed that our work should speak for itself. All those nights I was just working extra shifts. I was also building relationships, creating programs, finding ways to help more people. I never needed the recognition. I just wanted to make a difference. And that, Dr. Reynolds said firmly, is exactly why you're perfect for the position. Patricia Thompson looked like she might faint. But she's just a nurse. Just a nurse? Dr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Thompson, just a nurse. Sarah Martinez has done more for healthcare in this state than your entire family's hospital network. While you were planning galas and worrying about social status, she was actually saving lives and changing the system from within. James stepped forward. Commissioner Reynolds, I'd actually love to hear more about the Community Health Initiative. I'm planning to apply to medical school. Patricia interrupted, her voice shrill. But you're supposed to take over the family business. No, Mother, James said firmly. I'm going to make my own way, just like Emma did. Just like Mrs. Martinez taught her to do. The reception continued into the evening, but with a distinctly different tone than anyone had expected. The Thompsons retreated to their table, their social cards thoroughly played. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself surrounded by guests eager to discuss her work and vision for the future of healthcare in their state. As she watched Emma and James share their first dance, Sarah reflected on how differently this day had turned out from what she feared. She hadn't set out to humiliate the Thompsons or prove her worth. She'd simply refused to be diminished by their prejudice. Jenny appeared at her side with a glass of champagne. You know, the young server said with a grin. When my sister told me about the nurse who saved her life, she said you were some kind of angel. I think you might actually be a ninja. Sarah laughed, accepting the champagne. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about standing tall and letting your actions speak for themselves. Later that night, as the reception was winding down, Emma found her mother alone on the hotel's terrace, looking out at the city lights. Mom? Emma's voice was soft. I'm so sorry about everything. Not just today, but I've been pulling away from you, trying to fit into James's world. I forgot who I am, who you taught me to be. Sarah turned to her daughter, seeing not the bride in her expensive gown, but the little girl who used to fall asleep reading medical textbooks because she wanted to be just like her mom. You never have to apologize for trying to find your way, Sarah said, pulling her daughter into a hug. But remember, your value isn't in who you marry or what family you join. It's in what you do, how you treat people, and the difference you make in the world. Emma wiped away a tear, careful of her makeup. I know that now, more than ever. She paused, then added with a small smile, Health Commissioner Martinez. Sarah laughed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Why not? After today, I'd say anything is possible. As they stood there, mother and daughter looking out at the city together, Sarah felt a deep sense of peace. The Thompsons had tried to put her in her place, not realizing that she had built her own place, one of respect, dignity, and real accomplishment. The next morning, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. The staff can't stop talking about yesterday. You've become a legend at the Grand Plaza. Sarah smiled as she typed her reply. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living your truth and letting others learn from it. As she set her phone down, Sarah thought about all the paths that had led to this moment. Years of hard work, quiet dedication, and unwavering integrity had built a foundation that no amount of social snobbery could shake. The Thompsons had seen her as just a nurse, not realizing that every life she touched, every program she built, and every relationship she forged had created a legacy far more valuable than their superficial status. In the end, she hadn't needed to destroy them. She'd simply needed to stand in her own light and let the truth illuminate everything else. And as she prepared for another day at the hospital, commissioner's nomination or not, she still had patients who needed her. Sarah Martinez smiled, knowing that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong, but in proving yourself right. My daughter is joining the company, so I need you to resign. Today is your last day. On the morning of the 20th, the president suddenly told me I was fired. I was shocked and didn't know what to say. The 20th was the day we paid our suppliers. Some payments were made through bank transfers for longtime suppliers, but I also made direct payments and visited them as a courtesy. You look like you can go home right away. I'll give you the day off, just for you, so leave quickly, the president said. He pushed me out of the office, and the door shut with a snap right in front of my face. I didn't even know where to start to argue. My name is Emily. I joined this family-owned paving company right after high school and worked as a clerical worker for 10 years. Well, until just now. The company had about 20 employees, and when the current chairman was the president, the workplace atmosphere was great. It was an easy place to work. The chairman, now retired, used to work closely with the younger employees, and his wife, Catherine, would come in every day to help with various tasks until he was hospitalized. Their daughter Kelly was skilled in both field and office work. Her husband was the site manager and was trusted by the on-site employees. Even though they were the founding family, they never acted superior or looked down on the employees. It would have been wonderful if this enjoyable and smooth-running company life had continued, but unfortunately, reality wasn't so kind. At the end of last year, the chairman was diagnosed with cancer during the company's group medical examination. He decided to retire as president and appointed Kelly's husband, the site manager, as the next president. Both the employees and I unanimously agreed. We all thought the chairman should focus on his treatment and wish for his long life. However, suddenly, the chairman's eldest son, Tom, appeared with his family. I didn't know where he heard the news from. It turns out the chairman had another child besides Kelly. Tom had been disowned about 30 years ago, and I didn't know about it at all. According to the senior employees, Tom was a troublemaker in his youth and often had run-ins with the police. Whenever he caused problems, the chairman and Catherine would go and apologize. After dropping out of high school, he got involved in multi-level marketing and fraudulent activities, which finally led the chairman to disown him. Despite being out of touch for a long time, Tom suddenly appeared one day, pleading with his father, "Dad, I've realized my mistakes. Please forgive me." I was shocked to witness this in our small company, where the president's office and clerical room were one and the same. Tom expressed a desire to reconcile and work in the company, but his past made it hard to believe his sincerity after being disowned. "I apologize to everyone, but I ask you to give Tom another chance," the chairman said, pleading with everyone present. Kelly and the senior employees knew about Tom's troubled history and couldn't fully celebrate, but they couldn't refuse the chairman's heartfelt request either. So Tom and his family moved into the annex of the chairman's house, with Tom becoming an employee and his wife taking on household duties. I saw their daughter only once when she visited the company. She seemed to be a college student. The chairman believed Tom had changed for the better after facing hardships in life. Catherine was overjoyed that Tom had returned with his family, talking about rebuilding the company together. However, soon after, a problem emerged. Tom insisted on something. "I'm the eldest son, so I should be the next president," declared Tom, straining his relationship with Kelly and the site manager. Despite pretending to work diligently in front of the chairman, Tom actually did very little. He frequently made demeaning remarks like, "Physical labor is for the workers, and you're all just worker ants, work silently." Naturally, his behavior quickly made him unpopular with everyone. Some of the younger employees even went directly to the chairman, saying, "I can't work under these conditions." However, both the chairman and Catherine pleaded with everyone, saying, "We will talk to Tom about this. Please try to see the bigger picture." Then, due to stress or other reasons, the chairman's cancer suddenly worsened and he was hospitalized 3 months ago. Tom declared, "I am the president." Despite employees advising the chairman and Catherine to stick with their original plan of appointing the site manager as president, they ultimately chose Tom, their biological son, over their daughter's husband. This decision sparked grumbling among some employees, who felt the chairman and Catherine were biased by parental love or losing their sharpness with age. The once harmonious company atmosphere turned tense and uncomfortable. As tensions grew, Kelly and the site manager began working behind the scenes to manage the company. This left me alone handling all administrative tasks, whereas before Catherine, Kelly, and I shared the workload. Now, I regularly work overtime, sometimes leaving so late that the date changes before I head home. Meanwhile, Tom seemed to view administrative duties as effortless, spending his days at hostess bars, betting on horses, or gambling. My relationship with the president took a serious downturn over an expense issue. He had been using the company's credit card for personal dining and entertainment expenses, and I had been overlooking it to some extent. However, this time, the expense crossed a line. With apprehension, I handed the receipt back to him. "I can't approve this expense," I told him. "What? Why not?" he demanded. This is for your wife's corrective underwear. It's not related to business, so it can't be expensed. As expected, the president's face flushed with anger. Don't challenge me. She's the president's wife. It's natural for her to dress well. This is a valid expense. No, that's not how it works. Your wife's underwear can't be considered a business expense. I stammered, struggling to comprehend how the president could justify a $4,000 expense for his wife's corrective underwear. His next suggestion left me even more bewildered. Then let's turn selling corrective underwear into our new business venture. We'll categorize it as inventory so it counts as an expense. The president seemed pleased with his idea, but I was at a loss for words. We're a paving company, I managed to say. So what? We can threaten clients that if they don't buy from us, we'll cancel their contracts. Everyone will buy. It's easy money, $2,000 for one, $4,000 for a set. The president chuckled loudly, but I felt horrified. That's absolutely unacceptable. It will damage our credibility. I snapped at him in anger. From that moment on, I became the target of the president's disdain. Day after day, I endured constant berating from him. The situation became so difficult that I considered quitting many times. However, I continued to endure and work, driven by my loyalty to the chairman who had always supported me and my concern for the team who would struggle if I left. The truth was, I couldn't afford to lose my job suddenly either. I decided to tough it out until the right moment to move on. But then, unexpectedly, I was fired. If I quit abruptly now, it will cause problems for our clients, I thought to myself. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my courage and confronted the president. I can't do this. I can't just leave without proper notice and handover. Even your daughter wouldn't be able to handle the workload. Besides, today is the day we need to handle payments, I said in one breath, fully expecting the president to erupt in anger. As expected, the president's face turned red with anger. Shut up. I told you to resign because my daughter is joining the company. Today is your last day. As for the payment, let them wait until they come to collect it. There's no need to pay them up front. Excuse me, isn't it normal to pay for something once you buy it? I was shocked and explained it patiently, as if talking to a child. But the president responded with something so unreasonable that I couldn't believe he was being rational. If that's the case, just threaten to switch suppliers. Tell them we won't make the payment this time, so they should give it to us for free. What? That's not something we can do, is it? I was so stunned that I couldn't find the right words to respond. You're completely useless. My daughter has a college degree. She can handle office work easily. As family, she won't question my expenses like you do. You're all talk and no action. We don't need someone like you in our company. Leave now, the president sneered. It seemed clear he intended for his daughter to handle accounting so he could justify personal expenses as business expenses. Oh, is that so? Just remember, I won't regret this, I replied. Words were futile at this point. My patience had worn thin. I quickly gathered my belongings and left the company, feeling sorry for our clients. I called Kelly, despite knowing Catherine and Kelly were busy with the chairman. This was urgent. I explained everything and trusted the rest to Kelly. Once I left the company, I suddenly found myself with nothing to do. Being fired without notice clearly violated labor standards laws. If I reported this to the Labor Standards Office, the company would be in trouble. Since our company was part of the middle company payment system, I could claim my severance pay and 1 month's salary. This system supports small and medium-sized enterprises that can't afford severance pay on their own. I didn't need to rush because I could apply within 5 years from my retirement date, and the Labor Standards Office had a 2-year statute of limitations. With my professional habits, I planned out the necessary procedures and timeline for retirement. I decided I could take it easy for at least a week. Lately, I had been working overtime and weekends nonstop, leaving no time for myself at home. There were many places I wanted to visit once I settled down, so I chose to go on a day trip to the beach for a refreshing break. After enjoying myself at the beach, I checked my phone in the locker and found several missed calls, emails, and voicemails. Among them, Kelly's email caught my attention. It said, "The payment process went smoothly. Everything is in order." I felt relieved. Despite the abruptness of my dismissal by the president, I couldn't shake the guilt of leaving my job in anger. Next, I listened to the voicemail from the company. It was the panicked voice of the president saying, "Hey, what's going on? They're saying I'm not the real president. Did you know about this? Explain yourself." After chuckling at his realization, I continued to check my emails and voicemails. Among them was a message from the chairman, so I promptly headed to the hospital. Arriving at the hospital room that evening, I found Catherine and the president already there. As soon as the chairman saw me, he greeted me from his bed. "Emily, I'm truly sorry for my foolish son." "Hey, what's going on? I'm not the official president. Explain yourself." Tom shouted arrogantly, clearly not understanding the situation. The chairman quickly silenced him with a stern command. "Quiet down." It turned out that right after I had called Kelly, she promptly informed the chairman and Catherine. Upon receiving the news, the chairman immediately contacted Tom, who was acting as president, and asked, "Do you really not know anything? So what's the truth?" I calmly explained to the president, who was still shouting in confusion. "Essentially, Tom, you didn't have any legal authority. Your role as president was just a title. It might seem confusing, but in business terms, president is a position within the company and doesn't hold legal standing like a representative director does. The representative director is the one legally responsible for the company's actions externally. It's a different and more formal role that requires specific legal procedures to change." I continued, "While the title of president can be changed informally within the company, altering the representative director involves complex legal processes. That's why your position didn't carry the legal weight you assumed it did." 3 months ago, when Tom was appointed president, there was strong opposition from Kelly, the site manager, and veteran employees. That's when I proposed a strategy. Tom would be a figurehead president while the chairman remained the legally responsible representative director. As someone familiar with company procedures and laws, I knew the complexities involved. Under my plan, if Tom showed genuine dedication and won over all employees, then we would initiate the legal process to formalize his presidency. However, if Tom failed to prove himself fit for the role, the backup plan was to either remove him or even consider closing the company, while Kelly and the site manager prepared to launch a new venture. Kelly doubted Tom's ability to change. The chairman and Catherine continued to believe in Tom until he unfairly dismissed me, which seemed to awaken them to his shortcomings. "If you want to be a leader, learn and take care of your employees. I've told you this many times," the chairman emphasized. Tom retorted, "It's not a big deal, right? Can't we just handle the procedures now?" "No, it's not possible," the chairman explained. "Our company offers stocks to employees who want them, and many of them own shares. Emily owns 10%, making her a major shareholder. We can't disregard her views, and other shareholders won't support you either." As the president began to understand the gravity of the situation, his face paled. "What? I don't have any shares." "None. I plan to pass on my shares to you once you prove yourself as president. I'm deeply disappointed in you. Were you only interested in my wealth, thinking I didn't have much time left?" The chairman slumped in despair, and Catherine remained silent, visibly upset. Defiantly, the president responded, "Well, I'm the eldest son. What's wrong with taking what's rightfully mine? The company belongs to me. I can't forgive you anymore. The chairman bears full responsibility as the representative director of this company. Moreover, I'm a shareholder. I have the right to call for a shareholders' meeting and propose your removal," I asserted firmly. The president's face drained of color as he grasped the implication of removal. "You mean I could be fired? Dan, you were just a clerk." "Tom, Emily is right. At this point, no one will support you. Emily was the only one who spoke up to give you a chance," Catherine interjected. Then Catherine turned to me. "Emily, I owe you a sincere apology. I regret causing you trouble because of my love for my son. Please tell me what you'd like to do." I confronted the president directly. "Mr. President, I no longer wish to work under your leadership, so I am resigning immediately. However, I expect to receive my severance pay, along with 1 month's salary including unpaid overtime and holiday pay. As a shareholder, I will also take action through the Labor Standards Office to remove anyone who is detrimental to the company." I spoke calmly, and as I did, the president's complexion shifted from pale to completely white. Continuing, I informed them how Kelly had been actively visiting clients and successfully promoting our new company. Many clients had already decided to switch from our current company to the new one, and most of our employees were planning to follow suit. "That's impossible. I'll sue you," the president threatened, his voice cracking. But the chairman intervened firmly. I am the representative director. You have no such authority. The president collapsed to his knees, and I felt a mix of emotions: regret, disappointment, and a sense of closure. Mr. President, it's unfortunate it had to end this way. If you had changed your approach upon returning, things might have been different. There were ample opportunities for understanding if you had made efforts to learn and adapt. Ultimately, it was the president himself who squandered those chances. A classic case of reaping what one sows. In the aftermath, the chairman decided to shut down the company, leaving Tom unemployed. The president's wife attempted to sell corrective underwear, but it didn't succeed. They faced legal issues for aggressive sales tactics and were eventually arrested for involvement in a pyramid scheme. When Kelly returned to her parents' home, she found boxes of unsold underwear left behind. As for the daughter, she found employment elsewhere, although the specifics are unknown. I now work happily at Kelly's and the site manager's new company. I cherish my relationships with others and strive to live authentically each day.